think there's a lot of different ways to take it. Obviously, the football itself, we will talk about a little bit. I think really, though, kind of thought more and more watching this game. I've probably talked on this show about my thoughts on there being Monday to Saturday coaches and Sunday coaches, and kind of, you fall in those buckets if you're great at draft and develop and building up players and, preparation, but then maybe on game day, you're not very good with decision making and things of that nature. And Mike Tomlin, there's obviously some heat on him now, and there's been a lot of conversation about the deficiencies of that team. A great stat that John Ledyard shared was that he's 7-30 on his last 37 challenges, which is honestly remarkable. And there are now teams that just have a guy in a booth that tell you when to challenge.
Yeah.
I'm not sure why every team wouldn't just spend, I don't know, 60 grand to just never have that issue ever again. But anyway, so that just stuck out time and time and time again. Punting on 4th and 1 from his own 45 at one point, maybe a couple times, frankly, where he probably should have gone for it. I think Bill did that as well. He did. There was a 4th and half a yard for Bill from his own 45 or so where they punted in the first half. I think the thing that I come back to is when we talk about football as a sport in the NFL, maybe why they were later to the analytics game than others. I think what I come back to, and it's so prevalent in Pittsburgh right now. Yeah, I think in football, more so than the other sports, if you have the better players, the better athletes, the better dudes, you can just win on sheer talent and ability. Obviously, it's such a complicated sport. There is so much nuance to it, but I think until 5 years ago, you could. Obviously, NBA, you need a top 10 player to be a contender, but baseball, basketball, hockey, etc. To me, you can't just have better guys and just kind of that's all that really matters at the end of the day, and you win a bunch of games as a result. And that was the case even recently. And Pittsburgh still has that. It's why they're still have a winning record, but they're just losing on the edge cases every single week. And you don't have Cleveland and Cincinnati giving you 4 free wins a year in your division anymore, in part because Cleveland is at the forefront of data analysis, and all these other teams are kind of just not letting those little, edges go to waste. So it's just that kind of, was that the last game we saw of Belichick versus Mike Tomlin? I don't know. But if Tomlin doesn't change a lot of things about what he does, he's not going to get fired this offseason, but I've been pushing back on that. But I mean, he's horrific on game management. It's remarkable.
That got the round of applause from Tyler in the booth. The idea that Cleveland was no longer just going to roll over and give you wins. There are some kind of remarkable stats to come out of that game. I think the Steelers essentially, they put themselves in this crazy position of having a really good record despite being outgained in every game, up until the point where they fired Matt Canada. The point in their schedule, which looked the softest, maybe, right? This run against Cleveland, who just lost their quarterback, Cincinnati, who just lost their quarterback, then Arizona, and then New England. They've just gone 1-3 on that stretch. That should have been the run of 4 games that kind of propelled them towards top seeding in the AFC. Instead, it's the run of games that's dropping them out. They apparently became the first team in NFL history last night that had a winning record to lose against 2 teams consecutively that are 8 games below 500. That's never happened before in the history of the game, to go back-to-back losses to Arizona and New England with a winning record. Just absolutely crazy stuff. But I think you bring up this interesting point that has always struck me about head coaching hires. The job is so broad. It's 17 different jobs rolled into one, right? And you can be an all-time great. You can be Bill Belichick. You can be Mike Tomlin and be lousy at multiple aspects of that job. You can be Sean McDermott and think it's a great way to get guys on board by referencing 9/11. Apparently it's really easy to be terrible at multiple aspects of your job and still be a very good overall head coach, because it's 17 different jobs rolled into one. But I'm with you. I don't understand why, these guys don't therefore delegate areas of responsibility that they're bad in, right? And say, this is the thing that evidently I'm not great at. It's really easy to find somebody that can do this and just tell me the answer live, right? I can stick to setting the culture of the franchise, to coaching during the week, to, the broad stroke stuff, right? Making sure having a word in the ear of George Pickens on the sideline when he's getting upset that nobody's throwing him the damn ball. I can keep doing that, but somebody just tell me when we go or no go on fourth down. Just give me that signal. How hard is that? But they don't want to give up that responsibility.
But it's always this beautiful irony of like they probably wouldn't be the people they are if they didn't have that inability to delegate and to trust other people to take on some aspects of what they do. And so it's kind of funny. It's like they wouldn't be Mike Tomlin and Bill Belichick if they didn't just want to control every single aspect. But at the same time, it's also now creating this glaring weakness and problem in their process. And even ignoring the fourth down stuff, because some coaches just feel differently. Like if you're that bad at challenging because you're staring at a big board in a stadium, and we now have guys that can just sit in a booth and watch a million different camera angles and broadcast angles and just simply see more than you faster. Like that one, there is zero subjectivity to that in any way, shape, or form. It is an objective. And of course, you can get it wrong. Refs get stuff wrong every single week.
Right.
Including the long snapper penalty last night was the latest joke from refereeing. It did not, in my opinion, have a huge bearing on the game. I guess it kind of did, but like if you're the Steelers and you're blaming that for the loss, you're kind of missing the forest for the trees. But yeah, no, it is kind of fascinating and remarkable. And even Tomlin in his post-game presser basically said the reason they lost was because on their turnover they got 0 points, and on the Patriots pick they got 7 points. Which to me again is like, yeah, sure it was part of it, but you're kind of missing the forest for the trees again. And I guess credit him for going on fourth down. I joked when it was a TV timeout, and I was like, there's an 100% chance they're kicking a field goal on 4th and 2 from like the 8-yard line here. And I was kind of shocked they didn't. The fact they didn't convert means probably the next time they won't, which is obviously not the takeaway you should probably have in that scenario. Right. You shouldn't throw a shuffle pass to Jalen Warren 2 yards behind the line of scrimmage for him to get blown up by a defender. But yeah, anyway, we can get more into the real football and whatnot. But there was just so many, I think, overarching high-level takeaways and just kind of like larger narratives, because this is a legacy matchup, 2 first-ballot Hall of Fame coaches, and we're slowly seeing the game pass them by.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, the biggest reason that the game went the way it went is that Bailey Zappi, who had looked abysmal and, had no business being a starting quarterback, comes in and has a good game, makes several pretty good big-time throws. I think he had 2 big-time throws for the game, 3 touchdowns, actually made some big plays, right? And conversely, Mitch Trubisky, who's supposed to be the veteran, steady hand, the high-end backup, the guy that can come in and might not make any difference to Kenny Pickett, ends up with a grade in the 40s and looks terrible. I mean, it was masterful comic timing by the Bisque. Herbie had just finished talking about what a steady hand presence he brings and his experience and his, veteran ability to just keep the ship pointed in the right direction. And then he just like wildly throws the ball into a horde of Patriots defenders on a screenplay after he'd done, a ridiculous turnover earlier. It's like, I mean, that's the difference in the game, right? One backup quarterback played quite well. The other one played like crap.
110%. It's funny. I'll be honest. I saw he had 2 turnover-worthy plays. I'm gonna go dig into the film. I saw about a half dozen last night, but in reality, one of them was the penalty called back. So obviously that wouldn't actually, file as one. And I think it was a bit of a ticky-tack penalty. And even if the penalty was real, the throw was still horrendous. But I'm sure he has a bunch of -1/2s and -1s because he has a 40 passing grade. So that checked out. That matches the eye test, no question. The funny thing, too, you talk about Zappi. He did play well. Not to take away from that, but kind of going more into the Steelers and Mike Tomlin. So they had the most expensive defense in the NFL in terms of cap hit in 2023, which is not perfect. Obviously, cash and other things matter. But nevertheless, they are spending more on the cap on their defense than any team in the NFL. The first 2 touchdown passes are DeMonte Kazee and Levi Wallace just getting beaten. And frankly, those guys should not be starting on an NFL team in 2023. Like, with all due respect, they shouldn't. And that shows the weak link nature of a defense. And yeah, they had injuries to TJ Watt and Alex Highsmith. Obviously, that's massive. But Watt comes back, plays in the game. I thought rushed the passer well. Cam Hayward's healthy again, playing good football. But it just shows, again, like you spend all these resources on this unit and then just have these glaring weaknesses at a couple spots. and that can determine outcomes of games because you have below replacement level starters at two secondary positions that, yeah, I mean, got burned a couple times, but no, Zappe played well and threw some nice downfield passes and deserved, second half was just kind of run, punt, but, deserved the win and played really, really well in the first half.
Yeah, it's definitely a defense that hasn't played to the level that we've kind of become accustomed to Steelers defenses playing at, despite all that investment and all the money put in it. I think we do need to touch on the officiating late in the game as well, because I think there were two hideous calls, or a call, no call, two hideous officiating elements that absolutely screwed the Steelers. So you've got the false start penalty, apparently, on the long snapper, which is so that's on 4th down, 4th and 2, 4th and 3, whatever it was. It was a first down if it was a 5-yard penalty, right? So they miss out on extending a drive because they decide the long snapper's head movement was the penalty, not the defenders jumping offside on the play. Everybody, literally everybody on the field was convinced it was a New England penalty, including the guy that jumped, right? Whoever it was, 48, the linebacker for the Patriots, was like, oh, what have I done? This is a catastrophic error. Presley Harvin's out there like doing dances and pumped up, celebrating because he knows they've just caught them offside. Everybody is convinced this is a Patriots penalty. And then they're like, nope, false start on the long snapper. And they show the replays of this. Now, look, slow-mo replay, you can never really get a great idea of what, because it's one of these areas, right, where the rule is itself a gray area. It's like, I forget what the wording is, but it's like sudden and, unusual movement or something, right? Which is obviously a highly subjective term. You can never figure that out from a slow-mo replay because nothing looks sudden, right? That's the whole point of slow-mo. But you run that full speed. It was a normal pre-snap routine from a long snapper. Nobody looked at that except apparently the official and went, that's a false start. Everyone was just, that's what the long snapper does, head up, start to play. That absolutely screwed Pittsburgh on that drive. And then the other one, the 4th and 2 play where they took the shot deep down the field, Jonathan Jones, I think it was Jonathan Jones, right? Full on hooks, was it Deontay Johnson's arm? He never has a shot to reach his second arm up at it because his arm's being pulled behind him. It's crazy.